These two words express so much of what the story of the Bible is all about. They reveal the transformative power of God's intervention in our lives and God's incredible love, mercy, and redemption. And while we explored this in Sunday because of one particular passage, but God often signifies a shift from hopelessness to hope, from despair to deliverance, from death to life. These words point us ultimately to Jesus and how through his life, death, and resurrection, we see the pinnacle of God's but God moment in history. The words "but God" remind us that even in our darkest moments, God's grace shines through. They assure us that there is always hope, always redemption, and there is always a new beginning available to us through Christ, no matter how broken or lost we may feel. God can turn our stories around and bring about a transformation that surpasses our understanding. So this morning, we're going to take a few moments reflecting on a few passages from the Bible, tracing the good news of God's intervention in a broken world. In Genesis 3, verses 8 and 9, we see Adam and Eve hiding from God after their disobedience. It seems like all hope was lost, but God still wanted to be with them. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But God called to the man, "Where are you?" The story of Joseph is a remarkable testament to the power of God's providence. His brothers intended to harm him, but God turned it around for good. God used Joseph's suffering and unjust treatment to accomplish his greater purpose of saving many lives. Joseph said to them, his brothers, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Just before David became king, he faced constant pursuit from King Saul, who tried to kill him. It seemed like his life was in danger, but God intervened. David stayed in the wilderness strongholds and in the hills of the desert of Ziph. Day after day, Saul searched for him, but God did not give David into his hands. The ultimate but God moment is when Jesus died and was buried, but God raised him from the dead. As Paul said to the people of Pisidian Antioch, "Fellow children of Abraham and you God-fearing Gentiles, it is to us that this message of salvation has been sent." The people of Jerusalem and their rulers did not recognize Jesus, yet in condemning him they fulfilled the words of the prophets that are read every Sabbath. Though they found no proper ground for a death sentence, they asked Pilate to have him executed. And when they had carried about all that was written about him, they took him down from the cross and laid him in a tomb. But God raised him from the dead. And for many days he was seen by those who had traveled with him from Galilee to Jerusalem, and they are now his witnesses to our people. This good news is not just for those who are the most deserving or who can prove their loyalty. In fact, this is given for all of us who have failed. God's love knows no bounds and reaches even to the most undeserving. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. For you see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.